Please like and comment below and subscribe and share for more first-person encounters.
Small crawling humanoids attack Navajo Reservation residents. My story took place several years ago when we lived on the Navajo Reservation in Arizona. My entire family had gotten together for my mom's birthday and spent the night at my grandmother's house out in the sticks, in the middle of nowhere. At about 10:30 p.m. her dogs started barking and howling like crazy. No one got up to check because it was pitch black outside. But I could tell that the dogs were running back and forth chasing something. I got curious, so I turned the outside light on and stepped out the front door to see what was going on. Then suddenly, something jumped from the tree onto the side of my grandmother's house and started crawling like Spider-Man all around the house. It was hard to make out, but it looked like a small man crawling like a lizard. The house was made of stucco, but it moved around easily. This thing was fast too. The dogs were going nuts. I ran into the house screaming. Everyone was terrified and I remember crawling underneath the bed. The noises were horrible and it sounded like there were more than one. I heard squeaking sounds that got real loud at times. They would jump on top of the roof and could be heard walking around. I don't remember how long it lasted, but I was under the bed the entire night. When dawn came, we all went outside to check out the house. There were a few bits of stucco knocked off, but not as bad I thought it would be. The dogs were in the tool shed and too tired to move. Then my uncle got a ladder, so he and I climbed to the roof. What we saw was really shocking. There were hundreds of white handprints going around the flat roof, right up to the edge. The handprints were small in size, but were human. It looked like the hands had been dipped in white paint. I looked closer, but it wasn't paint. It was almost like a thick chalk. My uncle told me not to mention it to anyone in the family, especially my grandmother. She had said all her life that skinwalkers were after her. I didn't believe her, but after that night I began to wonder if she was telling the truth. I later asked my uncle what he thought it was. He didn't hesitate and said it was definitely witches. He said our family had been cursed during the old days before the treaties. He said someone in the family was a known witch, and when they were killed, the elders had placed a curse on the family. My uncle then laughed and said that no one outside of the family remembers any of that, and it's probably a rumor anyway. Well, it scared me enough that I believe that there may be something to that story. After that incident, I never spent another night at my grandmother's place again. JL.
Pale white crawling humanoid encounter near Tampa. I was walking late one night with my German Shepherd when I smelled an overwhelming stench of roadkill. I looked over into the woods near my home and saw a naked pale white man-like thing crawling in the woods. It was on its hands, feet and knees about 3 inches above the ground. I changed hands with my flashlight, which my dog's leash prevented me from immediately shining it in that direction. In the 2 seconds it took to change hands and shine the light on this thing, it had moved 20 feet too near a tree it was trying to hide behind. It saw my light as it was swinging towards it and quickly crunched into a cannonball-like posture and balanced on its toes at the balls of its feet, hiding its face and held perfectly still. I got a overwhelming feeling that if I kept shining the light on it, that it would look up at me with glowing eyes and a weird face. So I continued on with my walk. I thought maybe it was a teenager doing a mime, but there was no one taking a picture, and this thing had an oddly pronounced spine and was absolutely hairless. I went home and looked on the internet to see if this is something kids are doing now, painting themselves white, shaving all hair off, rolling around in roadkill, and crawling around late at night in woods. Well, I found a picture on YouTube of a rake that a hunter's camera had taken that looked remarkable like this thing. I have no idea what it was, perhaps of underground weller or ghoul or God knows what. I live in a country suburb of Tampa, Florida called Lithia. If you have any idea what this thing was, please let me know. Indiana Rake crawler encounter. This happened a couple years ago. I'm posting this now because I only just found out that anything called a crawler exists. I am skeptical of most things, but when recounting these events, I usually refer to it as my Bigfoot story because it was always the closest thing that came to mind. Anyways, this was a couple years ago in southern Indiana near Evansville. It was 2 in the morning and my friend and I decided to go for a joyride. This would have been in the fall, maybe near September or October. I can pin the date to that time of year because I live around a bunch of fields and the cornstalks were really high. I'd say approaching 10 feet. We were just driving around when I decided to turn on this old country road because it led to the local animal shelter. I had never seen the shelter before and I wanted to see what it looked like. Yes, this is the kind of stuff I like to do on joyrides. Both me and my friend were completely sober. The road ended up being much longer and roundabout than I anticipated, and we basically drove through a bunch of farmland. We were listening to music and I was driving pretty slow. We got to a long road surrounded by cornstalks when I heard my friend yell out, "Holy crap!" I put on my brakes and asked him what was up, and he looked over to my left. I'll describe what I saw as well as I can. Hovering above the top of the stalks was the top half of a very, very thin body. I remember it had wide shoulders and what appeared in the moonlight to be a long swooshy haircut. Like an emo haircut, I guess. It seemed to have very loose long arms, an odd-shaped head and neck, and was very pale in the moonlight. Both me and my friend were freaked out, and I knew it was not a scarecrow. The huge farms around here don't have those, or a person. The stalks were much too tall. Like I said, I always called it a Bigfoot, but I did not see any hair on this thing except a swoopy mass on its head. I don't know if this is a good indicator of a crawler, but I saw some areas near me on the map and had to post about what I saw.
Glowing white crawler humanoid observed at Lake Kootenay, British Columbia. To give you some background, my family owns a trailer home which sits on a cliff overlooking Lake Kootenay in the south of the Canadian province of British Columbia. This trailer was used as a sort of a summer getaway destination, as my parents and I visit for about a week or more each summer. The trailer itself is quite old. It was turned into a home by the previous owners in the 70s, but despite its age, it is still a very enjoyable place to experience the warmest months. The trailer sits in the middle of a cedar pine forest, with a small clearing on the side facing away from the water to park vehicles, as well as a driveway connecting to the road which is about 110 feet away. The nearest town is roughly a 15-minute drive, and there are no neighbors. I sleep at the opposite end of the trailer, which I call the cabin, as there is an additional dining room and porch built onto the trailer, with their bed at the front end and mine at the very back. There are 2 windows next to where I sleep, with one facing parallel to the lake and the other towards the previously mentioned parking area. Due to the positioning of our cabin in a mountain valley, around 9 p.m. in the summer it gets very dark very quickly. Since we sometimes are outside after this time, there's a bright lamp mounted on the front end of the trailer, which completely illuminates the porch area, facing the lake, and partially lights the parking area. This creates an orange glow that can get spooky, especially when raining. Around 11 p.m. one night, I was still awake sitting in bed and reading. I keep the blinds of the window facing away from the lake open as to provide a little light for reading, without having to turn on any inside lamps. The light momentarily gets dimmer, so I glance outside. What I saw was a large, almost glowing white creature which was moving through the semi-lit area, casting a shadow over my window. It had very long and spindly limbs, and I could see contours that looked like emaciated ribs on its side. It was hard to estimate a height, because it was moving bent over, in what I can only describe as a crawl. Just looking at it instilled so much fear that I couldn't look away, despite how much I wanted to. The creature moved at a fast walking pace from the front of the cabin and into the tree line. At the time, I wanted to believe that it was some form of very sick hairless bear, as we frequently saw bears in the area. Looking back, the limbs were just too long to be a bear, and too skinny. Also, I would think a bear with mange would still have some hair or discolored skin, but this creature didn't. It appeared entirely to be a white color, and the light from the lamp reflected off its side, making it glow a little. I wish I could provide any form of evidence that what I saw really happened. M.O.
Terrified by tall pale humanoid crawler in Maryland. This event took place over a year ago, but I hadn't really thought to post about it until now. I don't want to reveal myself, but I live in Maryland, and I was with my now former girlfriend at her house. It was a rural area, surrounded by woods in all directions. It was night, and we were going to visit her grandparents' house a short drive away. We got into her car, and while she was fiddling with her phone and the auxiliary cord, I saw something in the brush, illuminated by the headlights. It was tall, pale gray thin with a gaunt face and stretched limbs. I don't think it stood to the standard 8 feet of a crawler, but my lack of depth perception makes it hard to accurately perceive distance and height. All it did was watch, its seemingly hollow eyes fixed to me. It was gone before I could point it out to my girlfriend, and I didn't have the bravery or stupidity to investigate. I wish I had concrete evidence of what I saw, but all I have is my word and a terrifying memory. SS.
This is Lon Strickler. If you like this program, it would help us if you would give it a thumbs up. Then subscribe and click the bell icon so you get notification when we upload new first-person encounters. We have many more to come very soon. And by the way, if you have a suggestion or an experience of your own, please leave a comment.